And hello there. This is the My Hero Academia continuation of the tier list. We're gonna start at number 25. As far as like who, this is a who I believe would be the next top 10. I already did the top 10 heroes and the heroes for the next generation. I'm not gonna do anything with the next generation on this one, sadly, but I will say that I don't know. I'm not sure what. But I am gonna continue the. This one's gonna be a shorter episode for that reason. Um, a shorter stream for that reason. Uh, but anyway, let's get started with number 25. There's, I mean, I'm probably going to do some honorable mentions at the end of just probably going down the list of why certain people I didn't put them at those spots. A lot of that I feel like in the top 10 list I talked about how one of the bigger more important things to me is like what drives these heroes. I do not know why I have a second one of her. That is strange. And there's some repeats in here. I have no idea why. Okay. I'm sorry. Getting a little distracted, but uh yeah, there's some repeats for some reason. Anyway, but so I'll go through a couple of them just as far as why I don't think they would break into the top 25. Anyway, so number 25, um I chose Mina Ashido. So her quirk is acid, not like the drug, but like the. Oh, hold on. Let me see. Did I? Okay, I did start recording. But it's she can like slide around on like she's basically a slug, so she just slides around on like without the speed hampering. So she's actually really quick because she can slide around on like acid mucus type stuff. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Uh, but yeah, she can also like use it as projectile and um, just it's kind of hard to describe without watching the show. She's kind of like slime girl, if which kind of sounds disgusting, but uh, yeah, the reason I think she shows a lot of initiative, and I think there's even like even if you look at her history and her past with another character, there it does show that she's got a lot of confidence and that sort of uh, drive, and that's one of the reasons why she's in the top 25 and rather than some of the other people who might be a little bit more capable and a little bit more maybe even some that are a little more powerful. Um, but yeah, that's why I feel Ashido would be the number 25 hero. Number 24 is Nagisa Mora, which is kind of a weird choice, kind of similar to another hero as well. Honestly, it's really close to say like this other guy, the was I forget his name. Um, Seiji Shishikura. It's kind of close because he does a really good job of. It was kind of like hard deal between which one of those would be the number 24. I think this guy, he looks just like cousin It from the Addams Family, but he can actually like extend his hair and like use it to wrap up people, and like it's very good. And this I'll get into Shishikura a little bit later. Uh, like I might do honorable mention, but yeah, like I said, I think he would be more. He's probably gonna be. He would still be in the top 20s, but I just don't see him crossing that. His specific work, the Shishikura's, is so odd, and I'll get into that later. But as far as Mora, the reason I chose him is because he has a lot more versatility with his quirk. He can, like, the hair can be used to rescue people as well as uh, capture people. Whereas I feel like like I said, I'll get into that later with Shishikura. But anyway, he just has a very versatile. He can use his hair as like kind of like to like just. It's kind of weird to describe it. Just like kind of like um, very similar to another hero that we'll probably get into later as well. But another student, I guess, is what I should call him. But yeah, for right now, I think I'll just leave it at that. He just can extend his hair and kind of like stretch it around. It's kind of weird unless you watch the show. So it's just kind of a strange ability to describe. Um, my for these the next one, the 23rd hero, I'm going to put Shinzo. So Shinzo's quirk is basically just mind control, and yeah, he was probably like in the arc where a lot of these they pit the like he's just now getting into the hero courses. He seems to be very. His quirk seems very similar to one of the teachers at the school, and there's a lot of like speculation of, like, I mean, I think even whenever he was fighting on or with the hero course students in that particular arc where the class 1A and class 1B, the main class and then the secondary class, had basically like they basically fought each other, and he was kind of like and he showed some real capabilities, and his the way his he's got some gear that he's also gotten, like that allows him to change his voice. So, like I said, his quirk is basically mind control, but it only works if somebody him say something, hears him, or someone answers to his voice. So he'll say something, and if somebody else answers back, he can basically control their mind, and he can control what they can, or it's not really their mind, but more like their body. But yeah, he basically can control their motor functions. So that would be very useful in obviously uh, detaining dangerous persons. Uh, I mean, hell, even just everyday people, although it'd be kind of weird to use it on citizens, just getting them to evacuate. If he could do it to multiple people, would be really cool. Would be a great way to help too. But the thing that makes it him so good with like uh against like villains and is his sort of like tech can be used to change his voice to make it sound like anything or anyone else, like pretty much just anyone's voice that he's heard before. So it's a really powerful quirk. I mean, it basically is just mind control. So he could just have the he could basically just have villains turn themselves in. So pretty he's pretty he could do a lot of good with that quirk. And I think he would be a very maybe not necessarily physically powerful, but just on how much he does could be a very successful hero. And in the next one, number 22 hero, Shoji. Wow. Mezzo Shoji. Okay. Yeah, so his quirk is dupli arms. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's like he could basically add appendages to himself. I think even for some reason it looks real gross. It's just like a bunch of fleshy appendages, but he can extend them out and in weird and crazy ways and shapes. I think even once he's even used them to like wings and can fly on them, which doesn't make any sense, but okay. He can use them as kind of like a shield too, and like yeah, it's just kind of like he's could basically just extend his arms and just create like a weird like fleshy like just extra arms. He can just create extra arms just out of nowhere, like or out of his back. Well, not out of nowhere. It's like kind of on his back, and they just sort of sprout out of him. So, and then he can also, I believe, he can extend extra extra arms on top of the arms. So like the weird protrusions that he has can be extended further as well. And but I think the more he does that, the less, I guess the less powerful the arms are, which would make sense. But yeah, it's a very, and he could also, I think he can duplicate any part of his body. So he's, I think he's done that with like his ears as well. So he's can be very like, he can have like heightened senses and stuff like that too. So he's just a really strong quirk user, and he gets a lot of screen time, surprisingly, for being as weird as he is. And I think he gets a lot of moments to shine. The next one, Juzo Honinuki. I Juzo, there he is. Juzo Honinuki. I believe his hero name is Mudman, and he could basically just create, like he can soften, like it's not just mud, but it's like he can like soften any sort of material. So he could like make like hardwood floors, like just essentially turn them into liquid. And I think this would be a great like wide range type quirk against a lot of different enemies. It's also very. It could also be used like to soften the landings if like it's kind of like in the sense that I feel like it could be used like that. Um, but yeah, he could just basically turn things into like a liquidy sort of mud like substance. Um, he could. I think the way it's described is he could just change uh the softness or something like that of the um of a material, which is very strange, very interesting, very like I said, like yeah, like even like it for like rescuing people from a burning building, they could just jump, literally just he could just turn the concrete into like basically a watery substance, and he could just then people could just jump out of the building. So yeah, he could he's it can be used in a lot of different ways that can either be used to rescue people or to um uh or to stop criminals. But yeah, it's an interesting quirk that has a lot of versatility. Number 20, as we go from somebody that has a lot of versatility to pretty much just fighting, Tetsu 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 Tetsu. And yes, that is his name. His full Christian, I don't think he's Christian, but his full given name. Um, his full Christian anime name. But no, he's not. But yeah, he's just the same thing 4 times back to back. But he is his quirk. He has a rivalry with another hero, which um, with in Class A. So, but his quirk is basically he can turn his body metal. So he can basically just turn into Colossus. Uh, and yeah, that's a just very strong, good quirk for combat, but it's and obviously for strength purposes, he could potentially be like he could like help people like getting moving debris out and stuff like that, like moving debris out of the way and stuff like that. But there's just not a lot of versatility, not much versatility with him, which is why he's a little bit lower on the list than uh, some more, even some of the strength based ones. Uh, just because it's like he can turn metal. That's basically the gist of it. Um, anyway, number 19 is Ibara Shiozaki. I'm surprised I had her this low on the list, but yeah, her ability similar to uh, Mora. She uses her hair, but her hair is vines, and it's basically she's just poison ivy. Her with her hair, like her hair can just it's just vines that can uh just be she can control them, and they just they can grow. I think her quirk is dependent upon sunlight, so that's where some of the problems will be. She won't be really doing a lot at night, but yeah, her power is basically just her hair is just vines that can wrap people up, very similar to the hair of Mora's hair. Her vines can wrap people up. She can. They're actually really strong, and I think they can. They could probably hold back debris and probably do a lot more than what Mora could do. Although I'm not sure. They probably have similar. Those two probably have similar features, but I feel like also Shizaki would probably be more. Uh, would probably just be higher just because this list is a lot of the rankings are like public opinion. There's like it's kind of weird with the way the in universe ranking system works, and there's I don't think it's voted on based on who's the top hero, but it is based on a bunch of different things, and I think public opinion is also another aspect that's probably judged in this, and like that's something that I feel like she would be a little bit more like people. She's kind of got a weird personality, but I think people would just, as bad as it sounds, they'll just vote for a pretty face over the hair, even though they would do basically the same thing, just because she is prettier. But I do think she's also I do think her vines are actually a little bit more powerful than the hair, because I think his is limited by his physical body, whereas hers it can grow based on just how sunny it is, which is a little different, and I think that's where she pulls away from that and is a little bit stronger than him on that. But otherwise, pretty much all the same things that he can do, she can do, but with her vines, and her vines are probably stronger than just hair. So there's that too. But yeah, I think she's a really good hero that could. I mean, I honestly, originally I was wondering where she would be placed on here, but she hasn't really done a lot in recent history, so it's kind of hard to really judge where she's at currently. But yeah, I think she would be. I mean, that kind of goes with some like Mora as well, and some of these other characters that don't really have a consistent role in the universe. They're not like or they're not as like, I think most this past season, most of the stuff has been with just Class A, so there hasn't been much to shine on any of Class B. There's been a couple appearances by other characters, but not too much in that. And then 19 is what is it? Hanta Sero. Now where is he? Where is he? There he is. Hanta Sero. So his quirk, it may sound weird and it may be strange why he's number 18, but he can shoot out tape from his elbows. And that may sound weird, and you may be thinking why is he number 18? But the way he uses his quirk, he's basically Spider-Man. So he could just swing on the tape. Like, the tape is actually really strong. I don't know how strong they specific, but it can hold the weight of, I can't remember how many people, but it can at least hold his own weight. I don't know how much on top of his own weight it can hold, Uh, but yeah, he can just swing around like Spider-Man. He can use it to wrap up any enemies. He can like use it to just kind of like tie up pillars and stuff, I guess, too. Like, I mean, as far as with the debris and being able to help people. Um, but I think there's only so much that he can do with it. And like I said, with the webs, he's kind of got like a web slinging type aspect to it with the um with with his the tape, elbow tape. Um, so, but I mean that's the thing is if it's just Spider-Man can swing around on, the reason why he's only at number 18 is because even though he does have those web slinging things for like kind of like Spider-Man, essentially the tape slinging, I guess. Um, there's only so much he can do with that ability, um, and it's not like he's got the super strength, the Spidey sense, all this other stuff that Spider-Man has. So he just has the web sling, essentially just being able to zip around and wrap people up. So that's why I put him a little bit less than like some of the bigger ones, but he is a very capable hero, and he does do um he makes the best out of his weird and not uh very strong quirk. He does make the best out of it. Um, Number 17 is going to be Shihai Kuro Iro. Wow. I'm. Ugh, there he is. Uh, so I think his superhero name is Vanta Black. Basically, he can just. He can, like, he's basically a shadow guy. He can just dip into shadows and then uh, pop out in other shadows. I think it just works on anything that is like dark. I think that it's I can't remember how it's described in the manga, but I think it's like anything that is dark he can control or something, which is weird, a weird way to phrase it. I don't, but essentially, but I mean in the anime it's just basically he pops in and out of shadows. He's basically can, and I don't know if that's how it works in the manga as well, or anything that's the color black for some reason as well. Like it's kind of strange, but yeah. So anything that's dark or shadow, he can just kind of like pop out of. So I mean, just popping out of shadows is a very strong ability to have, and there's not really many places to hide where there's not a shadow. So he could do a lot of good as far as fighting crime and doing things like that. Um, and honestly, just rescuing people too. If people are hidden, he could find places where they're hidden more easily than people that, uh, and he could rescue people from uh from like spots where they're hidden too. Like it's a very versatile quirk for a hero. Um, so I think he's really really good with that. Um, Next one, and this one's kind of tough. I was going back and forth on which person should be 15 and which one should be 16, but I think I've settled. Denki Kaminari is going to be 16. So his quirk is essentially just lightning. He is can he's a good conductor of electricity. He can use and redirect electricity as well. I think he has a limit on how much electricity he can store, but he basically could just control electricity, which is good for like, especially in certain situations, down power lines. That's a very useful ability to have, and he's working on strengthening his quirk or his threshold of how much energy he can store. So that's really good situation, and also it's just a great attacking, and just you can stun people, and just as terms of fighting, it's a really powerful quirk. Just shock somebody with electricity. But it's tough. I think the reason why I put him at 16 and not 15 is because it's tough for him to while he may have an easier time with subduing enemies and subduing and his and with how much power his quirk has, I don't think his electricity doesn't really help anyone rescue except in extreme situations like a down power line or something like that. It's harder for him to do something uh to like it's kind of harder for him to do something to really like evacuate anybody. So for 15, Kiyoka Jiro. I never look at the. I guess it's last. I don't know. Is it last names or first names? But I never look at those names. I always go by the second name. But anyway, Jiro. While this may seem like a strange choice for number 15. I think the reason is she is very smart and very capable of utilizing her abilities. She can so she's got earphone jacks. I think I've described this in the previous one when we were talking about potential potential for the future characters. But she has essentially like these earlobe jacks, like they're like little like electronic jacks, like you put into a guitar or something, and they can like audio jacks, and they can kind of like jet into a wall, and she can basically like hear a lot further than a lot of other people. She can also plug them into her. I don't know if it's just plugging into her legs or if she has like a amplifier thing on her legs, like if it's just like a support equipment. But she can plug them into her ears and use them and just create like a sonic boom out of her like basically just create like, well, not sonic boom, but like it's a just like a sound wave that can subdue opponents, and so she's got a little bit more offensive capabilities, not as much as Kaminari. Reason I put them together on there is because I feel like, given the way their story is, they would probably work together. And I feel like they would probably both go back and forth on who surpasses who in terms of this. But I think with Jiro being more of the sort of, she has more of a leadership personality, whereas Kaminari doesn't really have that. She is more tactical, and like she can think more, like she's more strategic. And I mean to put it bluntly, she's just smarter than Kaminari. And I think she would be more. She would probably be the brains of the operation, while Kaminari would be more like a brawn, like the brawn. Which is why I put Jiro above. And she just her ability can help find people better. Like her earphone jack can just find people better. She's better equipped to rescue people than Kaminari is. I just think that her, like I said, I believe that they're kind of going on the fact that they're probably going to end up, whether it be in an agency together, or like it's kind of hard to figure out what, like it seems to be a couple. I think that's why I had them on there, is they've definitely shown feelings for each other. So it's hard to say if they're going to, like what their hero careers would look like, being sort of like a couple, because I feel like that's where it's going in the storyline. But yeah, it's like I said, I feel like they would be good as like a tag team, and that's why I feel like they'd have to be in the same thing. But I also think they're both individually capable of being very good heroes. I just feel like with the way the story's going, they're going to be more of a tag team, where Kaminari takes care of more like the villain situations, whereas Jiro is more of the search and rescue operation. And number 14, now that I've gotten all that, but I do think both of them are equally capable. Jiro with her intelligence, and Kaminari with just his ability. They're equally capable of being that top of heroes on their own. But number 14, Tetsui Asui. Tetsuyu, sorry. Or Suyu. Wow, I don't know why Tetsu's got me messed up. But Suyu Asui. I'm sad that she's not higher on this list, but I just don't feel like she has the drive enough for that. That is one of the factors that I've consistently talked about with why a lot of these characters are ranked where they are. And I think she is very passionate about her friends and helping people, and doing a lot of that, and doing a lot that benefits people in general. But it's hard to see, like I like just wanting to help people is a good motivator, but it doesn't seem to me it doesn't push them over the competitive spirit to strive to be number one, or number like the bigger, like to strive for a higher ranking. I still think obviously she's going to be a really good hero, but especially with the way her story has gone, with potentially being more of an environmental and working in working in like sort of like the ocean. And sorry if there's spoilers on that. It's actually more of like I think it's more like a filler episode, honestly. But yeah, she goes to work in like a ocean, like I don't know how to describe, like an ocean based agency, and to me she seemed to really enjoy that kind of stuff, and that's also another reason why I'm gonna potentially talk about another character, because I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna do the at least wrap up, do some honorable mentions. Um, but yeah, I think she is her focusing more on like she's really good. So I don't think I've talked about her quirk, which so she is her quirk is frog, which basically means she's Toad from X-Men. She's got a long tongue that she can use to grab people, and she can jump around like a frog. Uh, she's I think she can also camouflage herself, which is strange, and I didn't know frogs could do that. But there's some there's a lot of like she's very good like in the water as well, and that's why I think she's looking at more of like a potentially like a seaside rescue operation, um, which to me is why I can't put her any higher, because I don't think for a seaside rescue she'd really be doing enough to get herself noticed more than any of these others. But she is just a really good. Her powers really good, or her quirk is just really good and really versatile. She can, like, whether it be combat wise or rescuing people or doing that stuff, it's very a very good quirk. Um, that being the frog quirk. The next one, Suka Kendo. Ugh, I have to drag it all over. Itsuka. Itsuka Kendo. So she's got kind of a rivalry with, I believe, what did I put her as? Did I put her as number 9 spot? Uh, I forget what I put her as, but she's got a rivalry going with create. Oh gosh, why am I blanking on her name? Um, oh no, she was number 10. Yaoyorozu. Um, so she's kind of got a rivalry going. Oh, sorry about that. Oh man, with Yaoyorozu, who could basically just create anything. But Kendo, her ability is, I believe it's just called Big Hand. So she's basically like, she could basically just like turn her hands really big. I don't know if she can do it with her feet like Miss Marvel or something, but yeah, she can like turn her fist like really big, and just she's got a lot of power with that, and obviously a lot of strength with that as well. Um, I don't know exactly how versatile that is going to be in the long run, but she is, like I said, with her rivalry with Yaoyorozu, she's very capable at handling. She's very intelligent and uh, very good at planning as well. And her, I think that's like she clearly has a lot more drive to succeed and be uh, a next level hero. Even if her quirk might not seem on the surface to be all that great, I think she can utilize it in the best of her abilities. I think she can extend her feet as well, but I don't know that for a fact. Um, but I know she can. She's also one of the things that's really impressed me is when she was fighting like this guy who was using like gas, like actual like chemical warfare and he was wearing a gas mask, she like punched next to him and then extended her hand so that it would knock off the gas mask, and that always really impressed me. That's a bit of a spoiler, and I'm sorry about that, but yeah, she's just very intelligent with the way she fights, and I think that's one thing that shows, and obviously, like I said, the drive to succeed and be stronger and get stronger would place is why I place her at number 13. And number 12, Eijiro Kirishima. So he is the one who is rivals with Tetsu, number 20. He is the Class A hero. His quirk is hardening, and so that basically just means his body. He can make his body. Okay. That's not the right phrasing for it, but he can basically just make his body hard. That's kind of but it's kind of like they don't expressly say, like I said, how Tetsu can just turn himself into steel. Kirishima kind of can just turn himself. I don't know how they describe how hard it is or how intense it is. That sounds really bad in phrasing context. But I think like I don't know exactly how strong he can be. I know he has like kind of like a second form, which is also really powerful, but I think it can also leave cracks in him or something. Like it looks like his body is cracking. So I don't know how long he can maintain that, but it's a very strong quirk. As far as just being able to hit harder, and he's actually beaten Tetsu, who is literally steel with it. So it's clearly on some level stronger than it's like he could just increase the how strong it is or something. It's based, I think it's how strong and how hard it is based on his own limitations as opposed to Tetsu, who's a little bit more limited because it's just his body just turns to metal. And finally, number 11, one character that can easily, with a little bit more effort, push into the top 10. I think a lot of these characters can, especially Kirishima. I think even Tsuyu, I could see. I think I could see a lot of these pushing too. And like I said in the previous episode, this is a much more fluid list, and it's not like an absolute like these are the rankings for all time. This is like obviously an average. Like this is what I would say. Like at sometimes, like this is who I expect to be more often than not in these spots. But like I said, these spots are like the way the story goes and the way this the rankings happen in the universe. It can be, like I said, it's very fluid, and they can switch out like a lot of these rankings can be different than what I said. This is just what more often than not I would see as the ranking. And then number 11, without further ado, is Fugakake. I don't think I pronounced that right. Tokiyami. Fumikage. Fumikage. That's how you pronounce it. Had to look at that and read it for a second. But yeah, Tokiyami. His quirk is Dark Shadow, which is basically like Raven's. Well, it's kind of like a mix between Dark Phoenix, the Soul Self, and Raven's like shadow abilities. It's kind of like a living thing that like extends out of him as a shadow. It's hard to describe besides just it's the shadow thing that extends out of him and he can control it. He's a tougher time controlling it in like much dark, a lot more darkness, but that also just makes it really much more stronger, and have a lot more destructive power, but he can control it less in like very very dark situations. But I think he's working on that, and that's something that he strives to do better with, as far as like being able to control it in the dark a lot more. That's something he's actively trying to learn to do better. And again, like I said, these two characters have like the drive is one of the more important things for why some characters are consistently higher than others. And I didn't really talk about much about Kirishima's drive, but he has a really good drive to be better and to succeed and be stronger. And Tokiyami has that as well, and he's also got a great mentor as well. But yeah, he is just a really good all around hero. And I think he's got like his dark shadow, which is his ability. It's just it could do so many things. It's just like a shadow that can like the way he uses it is very unique. He can use it to in some cases fly. He can use it to like yeah, he could just use it to just straight up attack people, and it's hard to really describe without like getting into detail. He can use it to climb onto stuff. He can use it to like probably grab people and rest like for a rescuing way to rescue them. It's just it's a hard ability to describe like a lot of these, uh, but it's a very very good quirk. He could basically just control a shadow that can react, or he could just control a shadow that has the ability to interact with stuff. So like, and the shadow can just extend. It has a decent amount of range, but not like a crazy amount. Like you can't just send it. But yeah, it's kind of similar to sort of Raven's. I guess soul self is kind of what she calls it. It's very similar to that. If you've ever watched Teen Titans, but yes, or read any of Teen Titans comics, but yeah, that's how I. That's what I see is the rankings. So just scroll on through, see the whole list. And now let's look at some honorable mentions. I don't know why he is here. Why that shouldn't be there. Let me make sure that there's nobody in here. Well, let's start with the Class 1A. Okay, where else? No. Let's start with Class 1A for the... let me see if that is... And I'm not going to go through all of these people, but I'm definitely going to go through some that I think should get more recognition. Yeah, that looks... Oh, he's in there. Oh, and he's doubled. She's doubled. She's doubled. She's doubled. Oh, he's doubled too. There we go. That looks good. Okay, anyway. So the Class 1A. Sato. His quirk is Sugar Rush, which is basically... He eats sugar and, like, he can get stronger. Like, his... It's a very strength-based quirk. And I honestly think he is probably in that 26, 27, just right below this, in that sort of range, 26 to 30 sort of range. But it's just hard to know without his, without knowing his limitations more. And honestly, he doesn't really get too much time to shine in the show, so it's kind of hard to really understand where his abilities lie. But I do think he is definitely in that sort of 25 to 30 range of heroes. Ojiro, he's got a big muscly tail, and that's his quirk. It's not a very good quirk per se, because it's just a tail, but he has kind of like used... he's a martial arts guy, so he's kind of used it in his style of martial arts and created his own sort of unique fighting style, which is really cool. And I think he does get a lot of time to shine for being just a guy with a tail. But in the end, he is just a guy with a tail. And I don't think he's very... I think he'll be a very good hero. Like, maybe not necessarily that 25 to 30 range, but probably in that 25 to... or like 26 to 30 range, but maybe like 26 to like 35, 40 range. He'll probably be consistently in that range. I think he's has a good combat. He's a good combat hero to help out. Aoyama, his quirk is navel laser, so he's got like a laser that shoots out of his belly button. It's a very powerful laser, but again, it's such a specific ability, and he's got kind of a big drawback, is that he gets... they call it stomach ache in the show, but it's I believe I believe they say, like, I believe in the, I don't know exactly, but I think it's like diarrhea if he um uses it for too long. And that's a bit of a drawback if you're going to get physically sick when you use your ability. So I don't see him being as good of a hero, or as big of a hero as a lot of these other Class A teams. And Hakugure ha, Hagakure. Wow. Hagakure. She is invisible, and that is her quirk. She can't turn it off. She is just invisible. Um, it's kind of only really good for stealth and like stealth missions and gaining intelligence and stuff like that. So I don't really see it being really in the spotlight, her being in the spotlight for a lot of intense missions. Or for like, I don't see her being in the spotlight for uh, a lot of the bigger like fights and bigger like events that go on. And I also think she's gonna have a hard time, like her just being invisible is gonna make it a lot more difficult for her to rescue people and her to really utilize her job properly. And so I think she's much more useful for like stealth situations. Unfortunately, even though I don't think that's where she would want to be, and that's a bit of conflict where I don't know exactly where she would fall in the hero, like in the hero rankings. I honestly have no real idea. And then Coda, he can speak with animals, and I believe he can ask them to do their bidding, to do his bidding, but I don't know if he can force them to do his bidding. So I don't know if there's like a bit of mind control aspect to it, but I know he can talk to animals essentially. I don't know, the reason why I don't think he's going to be a very top hero is because I think he's going to be more like a ranger style hero where he's out in the wilderness helping, like sort of like a forest ranger. That's kind of where I see him in the future, being like that kind of hero. And that's a very good and that's a very good and useful position for him. But again, like similarly to where Asui will be on the seas if she decided to go that route, it wouldn't get a lot of fame and usefulness uh, out of that position. And finally, Mineta. I, as painful as this may be for some people, I actually think he has the potential to be in that 26 to 30 range. So his ability is pop off, and he can like take little balls on his head and just, they're like, they could stick to anything, and he could just take them off and throw them, and he can use them to kind of lock down villains. He can use them to, he's actually used them in a lot of different ways. I think he could even use them to like fill in cracks, like to stop something from going down, for stop like a pillar from coming down, or stop like a I don't know. I think he could use them in a lot of different ways, and that's why I think he does have the potential to be in that 25 to 30 range. But the biggest problem with him is his personality, because he's just the pretty much just the perv. And that would pose, if that extends to him as an adult, that's going to create a lot of legal issues for him. And that would not be good for a hero. And also, it's just a big distraction for him. And I think that's it. It'd be too much of a distraction for him with the way his personality is. He would need to clean up his personality in order to really effectively be that number, like around that area of the 25 to 30. He would really need to clean up his personality in order to get to that spot. And I just don't believe he has the will to do that. But I do think he's also very intelligent. I will give him this. He is actually smarter than I think a lot of people give him credit for. He actually, well, that's more of a spoiler for that training arc. But he is very capable, even among like hero class characters. I'll just leave it at that. But he has shown his how tactical he can be in some ways. But unfortunately, like I said, his personality just needs a lot of work. Now we're going on to I'm not going to go on to, like I said, I'm not going to do all of these characters but I might highlight some of class, is it 2B? But the other class. But for now, I'm going to go straight to the non UA people. So I think we talked about him before with Mora, but what is it? Seiji? What's his name? Yeah, Seiji Shishikura. I don't remember if this is his actual name, but I call him Meatball Man because he can just turn people into. It's a really disgusting quirk that seems like it would be a villain, but he could just turn people into meatballs, essentially. It's a weird. I know it sounds weird, but I don't know how else to describe it. He can change them back at any point. But which that is really good. I don't know if he has to touch them or what specifically he has to do, but that is a good quirk. It just for like one purpose, and that is to catch villains. Fact that he's able to just turn people into essentially functionless meatballs and would be very useful, and then just turn them back whenever he wants, is very useful in capturing people. But I that's the reason why I don't put him in this rank. I think he would be in that sort of 26 to 30, maybe in that range. But the only reason I don't is because it's like, I mean, maybe it can be used to rescue people. Like he could carry more people out if he turns them into meatballs than he could just carrying people out normally. But I don't know that people would really thank him for turning them into meatballs. Uh, it's a weird quirk that I don't see a lot of uses besides just capturing villains. Like I said, maybe some rescuing, but that's still people won't. That's still a weird quirk. Uh, you Yo Shindo, I think is his name, right? Yep, Shindo. So Shindo has, I think his quirk is like vibration or something like that, and so he can kind of vibrate. I don't know if it's his body or if he can vibrate like he can. I think he can create like tremors, but even in recent history of My Hero, his downside is that if he uses too much of his power, he becomes a very big liability. And because he cannot move his body, and that's even more of a liability than Aoyama, who gets diarrhea whenever he uses too much. I can't remember if it's diarrhea or if he pukes. It's one or the other. Comes out one end, one of the two ends. But either way, Shindo, that's such a big liability to just be completely frozen and not being able to move. That's such a liability to have on the battlefield. It's unfortunate, and I just unfortunately don't see him overcoming that, especially with how recently we've been. Recently, he did show up in the anime, and it's definitely something he seems to be wanting to work on, but there's only so much he can do with a physical limitation like that. And I think that's why he's, even though I think he could be in that like 26 to 30 range, that liability, being such a liability after using too much power, is such a drawback for his just it's such a drawback for a character, or for a hero. I don't really think there's too much else in terms of there's these two guys. I don't really remember what their quirks are. I think his is I feel like his was similar to Mudman, but not as good. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I think his is something like Boomerang. I don't know what that specifically means. So they're kind of a question mark. And hers is she can kind of, I think I might have talked about this in the other one. She can basically pull in her body like a turtle. So she can like tuck in her head, her arms, legs, other appendages, whatever else she. I don't think there's any other appendages. But she could just tuck in like a turtle, which, if Shindo and her are a couple, which I don't know if they've mentioned or not, whether they are or not, then maybe that provides a little bit more stability if they would have a kid. Um, and I might have talked about this in the future generation lineup. But yeah, I think like it could he could have they could have this his power without as much of the drawbacks that he has if they have the turtle aspect. Like it could stabilize them a little bit better. Anyway, that's all for those characters. Let's go into the class 2B. Uh, to, uh, Tokage. She's an interesting one. I think she has a lot of good leadership skills and a lot of strategical mind. Her quirk is she can kind of like split off her body into I think it says specifically into like 50 little parts. I don't know why specifically 50. I don't know if she can train that to be more. But yeah, it's an interesting ability. She could is if I had to compare it to anything else, it's kind of like Buggy from uh One Piece. So yeah, I feel like that's the best descriptor of it. She could just kind of section off her body into different parts and control them through the air. Uh, and I think the next person. Oh, I guess I could. I mean, I can mention her in Telly. She's technically a different school. I can mention her. I think she's just more of a strategist than anything. Her quirk is that she's smart. That's basically it. So it's not really a. So she's more like a strategist than anything else. So I don't feel like she's worth mentioning. And these ninjas aren't really worth mentioning either. I think some of them might have elemental powers. Like I think this guy or this girl actually, she controls like mud, and this guy controls water or something. But I don't know to what extent. Um, uh, Other characters that I could see. Uh, Jirota, he's a really good. He has a really good quirk too. His ability um is I believe what is it called? It's I don't know what it's called, but he can basically turn into different forms of himself, and he can become more beast like. But the more beast like he becomes, the less intelligent he is, and he's actually really intelligent uh in his like normally. So but so like he's got like and he's got like more strength in his more primal forms. But again, not being able to control if his ability if his more beast like form is not in control, it's kind of that becomes a very big problem. Um, I don't really want to go over these guys. Um, I don't really think. Okay, I do want to talk about Monoma right here. Monoma. He is. His quirk is the reason why I don't put him in the top. I think he's passionate enough, but his quirk is very limited. It's called copy, so he basically just copies. I think he can copy up to 3 or 4 different quirks. I think it's 4 actually. I can't remember. It's either 3 or 4. Uh, but he can copy up to. He can copy how that mini quirks. I can't remember if he can steal if he steals them or if he just copies them. I think he just copies them. But either way, that's so limited. Like it's got a lot of potential and a lot of possibility, but it's also limited in that he needs another person in order for his quirk to work. And that's a real problem. I don't remember what her name was. Kodai. Kodai is a really interesting quirk, and her quirk is really interesting, and it's very similar to this guy, this red guy, and I think his quirk is actually just a better version of the quirk, the ninja guy. Her quirk is that she can. Well, his quirk I think is more like he can. Like she can control the shape, or she can shrink objects and then return them to normal size. Uh, so whereas he can just increase the size of an object. I don't know exactly what the limitations are on that. They didn't really go into much detail because he's not really a canon. Well, I don't want to say he's not canon, but he's just not a. He just kind of like exists, kind of. He's just kind of exists in like one episode and then is not a thing. All those ninja guys are. They just exist in one episode. But yeah, he's like those two have interesting abilities. I'm not exactly sure which one is better. Whether it's like something she can shrink something and then she uses a lot of them as projectiles and then returns them to the normal size. And then he can just he has something small and then he just makes it larger. So it's like I don't really know which one would be better. I think his probably has more options than hers. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that I feel like their quirks are so similar. I just had to mention the two of them in the same breath. And I don't think, I don't think theirs are very useful. Like they're just kind of generic elemental things. I forget what her name is. Let me look it up. Komori. Komori. She is a very interesting character. She can make essentially mushrooms sprout anywhere. I don't know if she can control which type of mushrooms can sprout anywhere, or what else she can do. But yeah, it's an interesting ability to have, and honestly, I think with the way her powers work, she could be in that 26 to 30 range. She can because she can just create mushrooms. I think she can create mushrooms that can actually make people pass out too. Like, I think she did that at one point where she just created mushrooms that just made people pass out. So it's a very useful quirk in subduing a large group of people. Manga. That's literally his name. Manga Fu. I'm not even gonna attempt the last name, but he could basically make onomatopoeia sounds real. So he just shouts something, and it uh it can just like appear in reality, like as it can create walls, it can create just like the letters just exist in reality. Um it's to me it's such a limited ability cuz like you may be able to once in a while like create a dam and stop water from flooding into an area, but other than that, as far as just stopping bad guys from like by just shouting at them and having letters just attack them, it doesn't seem, aside from that, it doesn't seem like it's going to be very useful in a lot more situations. Um, what was it? Reiko? Yeah, Reiko Yanagi. Her quirk is poltergeist, so she essentially has telekinesis over small objects, but I think the combined weight can only amount to like roughly the size of the weight of a human body. I don't know if it's tied to like her specific weight or what it is, but it's such a big limitation that if she can train it, she can make it a lot better. But if she can't extend that limitation, then I don't see that power being much help. Uh, Aside from just uh, I can't see that being much help. For like it's not like telekinesis that she can uh just like lift a large truck and like throw it at a villain or something like that. So it's not. I don't see how useful that could be. It's not as helpful as something like that. Rin, I think, is a really interesting hero, and I think this is probably where I'm going to end it because I don't really know if any other characters really stand out as in that level. But Rin can kind of like grow dragon scales and like shoot them out as like projectiles. And yeah, that's his ability. So he's so I think that's such a really interesting ability to have. And like just having that projectile. I mean, I think this girl Pony, she has projectile too, but it's her horns. But I mean, he can just like kind of like, and I think he can use the scales as armor as well. So the scales can be like can form armor around him, and he can just use them as projectiles. So he has a sort of a strengthening type quirk, and he has a bit of a longer range. So I think that is a really good combination. Whereas some other characters, like I will say these two, don't really have that longer of range. I believe Sin, he can create like he can make his body parts spin like a drill. Or I don't know, Kayabara. That's his name. And Togaru, I can't read that last name on this thing, but he could produce blades out of that. And I think the reason why I'm mentioning them now, but the reason why Rin I think is just a little bit better than that is because that those two are a little bit less projectile, or they're not projectile at all. So him having that projectile gives him a little bit more of an edge, and makes him a little bit better of a hero, like, or not better of a hero, but like he has a lot more potential than they do, who are just a little bit more close combat oriented. And now that's done, let's take one more look at and let's one more rundown over who is the top, or who is from number 25 to number 11 in terms of the tier list, since we have 1 through 10 already. Number 25 is Mina Ashido. Number 24 is where did I put that? Number 12 is Nagamasa Mora. Or number 20. Why did I say 12? Number 24 is Nagasamura. Number 23 is Shinzo. Number 22 is Shoji. 21, Juzo Honenuki, i.e. Mudman. Number 20 is Tetsu. 19 is Shiozaki. 10 is Sero. 17, Kuro Iro? Wow, Kuro Iro. 16, Kaminari. 15, Jiro. 14, Asui. 13, Kendo. 12, Kirishima. And 11, Tokiyami. And I think that's pretty much where that will be. That's pretty much what I expect the list for at least the 11 through 25 heroes are going to be. That to me seems like the best. That seems like what I expect that to be. And like I said, the next or the 1 through 10 is already on YouTube. It's on at my channel at MeHasAHat. I think that's going to be it for tonight. I'm going to stop recording for YouTube.